Greetings, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Kerri-Ann Classroom. Tonight's program, Gun Violence in Our Community. We'd like to invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy this educational, informational, and hopefully entertaining program. We have guests, and there's a guest host this evening that we're going to introduce you to. She's Dr. Smith, Dr. Kerri-Ann Smith. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take you into a little poetry before we take you to Dr. Smith. So if you will, welcome to Kerri-Ann Classroom to enjoy this piece of informational poetry right here.
So I'm driving down the street with my 4-year-old nephew. He knocking back a juice box, me a Snapple. Today, y'all, we are doing manly shit. I love watching the way his mind works. He asks a million questions. Uncle, why is the sky blue? Uncle, how do cars go? Uncle, why don't dogs talk? Uncle, uncle, uncle. He asks uncle, uncle, uncle. He asks uncle, 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 as if his voice box is a warp record. I try my best to answer every question I do. I say it's because the way the sun lights up the outer space is because engines make the wheels go. It's because their minds aren't quite like ours. I say yes, no, no, yes, no, yes, no. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe. We laugh. He smiles, looks out the window, spots a cop car, drops his seat and says, "Oh man, Uncle, 5-0, we gotta hide." I'll be honest. I'm not happy with the way we raise our black boys. Don't like the fact that he learned to hide from the cops well before he knew how to read. Angrier that his survival depends more on his ability to deal with authorities than it does his own literacy. Get up, I yell at him. In this car, in this family, we are not afraid of the law. I wonder if he can hear the uncertainty in my voice. Is today the day he learns that Uncle is willing to lie to him? That I'm more human than I am hero. We both know the truth is far more complex than do not hide. Both know too many black boys who disappeared, names lost, know too many Trayvon Martins, Oscar Grants, and Abner Louimas, know too many Sean Bells and Amadou Diallos, know too well that we are the hard-boiled sons of Emmett Till. Still, we both know it's not about whether or not the shooter is racist. It's about how poor black boys are treated as problems well before we're treated as people. Black boys in this country cannot afford to play cops and robbers if we're always considered the latter. Don't have the luxuries of playing war if we're already in one. Where I'm from, seeing cop cars drive down the street feels a lot like low-flying planes in New York City. Where I'm from, routine traffic stops are more like minefields. Any wrong move could very well mean your life. And how do I look my nephew in his apple face and tell him to be strong when we both know black boys who are murdered every day simply for standing up for themselves? I take him by the hand, I say be strong. I tell him, I say be smart. Be kind and polite. Know your laws. Be aware of how quickly your hand moves to pocket for wallet or ID. Be more aware of how quickly an officer's hand moves to holster for gun. Be black. Be a boy. Have fun. Because this world will force you to become a man far more quickly than you'll ever have to need to. He lets go of my hand, but Uncle, he asks, Uncle, what happens if the cop is really mean? And it scares me to know that he, like so many other black boys, is getting ready for a war I can't prepare him for.
According to Mayor Bloomberg, 90% of murder victims in New York City are either black or Latino. The New York Police Department also claims that blacks and Latinos are responsible for the majority of gun crimes in New York City. What we then have is a proliferation of both violent crimes and gun-related activities in the black community in New York City. The courts recently declared the New York Police Department's stop and question and frisk policy as unconstitutional. As Javon Johnson just showed us in his poem, young black children like his nephew have become too familiar with the fear of the police and the death of family members as a result of gun crimes. Tonight we'll discuss the gun crime situation in New York City and across the country. We have tonight Terrell Ebony. Hi, Terrell.
Hello, how are you?
David Williams, a student at St. John's, and also Tara Delane.
Welcome.
From youth activist Life. She's a youth activist from Life Camp. Welcome.
Yes, welcome.
To Kerri-Ann Classroom. The first question I'd like to talk about, well, what we'd like to talk about first is why do we think urban violence is ignored across the country?
Because we don't care. That's why it's ignored. If we don't put a voice to it or speak out amongst it, it just gets swept underneath the rug.
It's kind of become the standard or expectation that this is how it is, this is how it's going to be. Kind of like when people use the rhetoric, there'll never be peace in the Middle East. It's probably the same kind of effect when we talk about urban violence. Like, it's just the norm, it's going to happen. The best thing to do is either move out or just cope with it.
I see it that, like what was said earlier by Terryl, is that we don't do much about it. If we see, if it's violence, black on black crime, it's somewhat ignored. If a police officer does something to an African American or Hispanic young man, it's emphasized. In the case of Trayvon Martin, if a white person does something to a young black boy, it's emphasized. But if a black person does something to another black person, it's not emphasized. And if we're not going to stand up and take control of who we are and what we stand for, what we believe in, and take pride in our own culture and our own people, then no one else will.
So do you think we're desensitized then to violence towards a black body?
We're probably desensitized to violence that's not put on the media. Because everybody was drawn into Trayvon Martin case. That was white man, black boy. But the black on black crime, there's nobody really here. You might talk amongst it with your peers, but that's as far as it goes. Nobody is really going to explain it or express it to someone who it really matters to, your city councilman, anybody that you'll let them know, listen, I do have a voice for this, so I hope that it can make a difference. But like she said, if it's just left alone.
But why? Why do we not care that black people are killing black people, that anybody's killing? George Zimmerman, we all jumped in, right? Everybody wanted to know about that.
Everybody was tweeting. My Facebook page was going off. Instagram. Right. Pictures. I mean, that was the most creative that I had seen, like, my era, just, like, voicing. And it was like, well, damn, did we really understand what happened? Or are y'all just mad that you heard the verdict or nobody really caught the message? Because I was really upset that I didn't stay up on the trial on TV, because I would have loved to. But it was just on certain things that I was hearing, oh, well, why did he even bother? It was just, nobody was really educated enough on it. So once they heard the trial, it was just like, oh.
Well, were we not educated, David? Or hasn't it been on TV?
Yeah.
It has been on TV. I think a lot of the outrage should go to our black leaders, our congressmen.
Like who?
Well, Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson.
Wow.
You know, there's always an outrage when we've had crime, you know, from an outside race. Right. But that sense of urgency and that momentum needs to carry over. Someone needs to say, hey, you know, what are we doing as a people, as opposed to, you know, just having this constant. I feel like our black leaders, or in general, we just have this feeling to always mobilize against, you know, what they would feel as opposition.
So we're reactive and then not proactive.
We're not proactive.
Right.
And, you know, there has to be some level of accountability, which is not there. There's no accountability in our neighborhoods. There's no accountability in our homes, in our schools. So before we can really, you know, say, hey, what are they doing to us? What are we doing to ourselves? And then I think we can better, you know, progress as a people, as a nation, if we kind of look ourselves in the mirror.
I think that in today's society, our young black people are taught from a very young age to be afraid of the police, opposed to work with the police. They're taught that the police are the enemy, opposed to the police are there to protect and serve.
Are they wrong?
In a way they are wrong, in the way that they are right, because we do have, the job of the police is to protect us. And there are some police officers that do protect us, and then there's some that don't. So it's not right to categorize all police in that same bucket. And I think that it really confuses the children. It confuses the young people when we do that. They're also taught that basically, like, all white people are bad. All white people are racist. All white people are against you. You got to look out for the white man, and it's all about the black. So they're taught at a very young age what families and parents and leaders that talk to the youth, what they don't realize that they're doing, they have become the racists. They have become they have become the racists, because that's basically what you're teaching them, that the white man is now the bad guy. And not all white people are bad.
No, of course not.
But that's not the way that when you speak into a youth or you're speaking to a person, if that's what you're constantly hearing, that's what you're going to believe.
But how about how they're treated in school? How about how they're treated by the police in the street? How about how they're treated when they approach a store and they want to go in?
Not everybody is treated that way, but they're always up in arms and they're always on the defensive when sometimes they shouldn't have to be, or there's no reason for them to be. But because they're taught that from the beginning, like was said in the poem, he's 4 years old, he hears a siren or he sees popo, oh, we got to duck and hide. Where did he learn that from? They're not after you. Why would you feel the need to have to duck and hide? That's
Have you ever
sad.
been in a car with a black man with the police sirens behind him?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen his reaction?
Only if there's something wrong.
No, I
I've been in-
disagree.
No, David?
I was actually with two of my friends. One was actually Hispanic, and the other one was Asian. The Asian was a driver. The Hispanic was in the passenger seat, and I happened to be in the back on my laptop. For whatever reason, it was a Jeep, so I was kind of like lounging out in the back on my laptop, just typing, and we got pulled over. So the cops immediately kind of like told me to get out the car, as opposed to no, check your license or registration. Hey, what are you doing in the back? Get out of the car. And
You're always presumed guilty first.
You're always presumed guilty first, and it's just one of those situations where you really, you just really don't have the right of way in anything.
And so intrinsically you react to that rather than
you have to
think
react.
they're protecting.
And she brought up a good something good with the police department. A lot of the police department officers, a lot of the police officers have limited or no interaction with black people or minorities up until employment. So for example, even in the legal field, I interned at a few law offices, and I can say like 90% of the blacks or Hispanics that your basic paralegals and attorneys deal with, they're seen as criminals, so they don't really see black people or Hispanic people, minorities, in a positive light ever. So when they go to work, all you see is a black person and they're in a jumpsuit, that's your perception of them. And similarly with
so it's a limited, what you're saying,
with who they hire in the police department, a lot of these people from Suffolk County or XYZ County upstate, and many of them have never really been in the boroughs to really understand or interact.
But the NYPD would argue with you, right? So I have to play devil's advocate, because the NYPD would argue that the statistics that they have say that black people are committing the crimes. So they're going to want to pull them over more. Yeah, they're going to be more aggressive. They're going to. One cop I spoke to recently actually said, "Put your mother in the situation, right? She's coming home. She gets robbed. Her groceries are taken from her. Somebody beats her up. She only has groceries in her hand. He wanted money. He takes off." The cops start to frisk everyone around. This is your mother. Are they wrong?
With the statistics, there has to be a balance, right? So arguably, if I'm managing a store and everyone who comes in with a white hat always robs my store as opposed to a gray hat, of course, when someone walks in with a white hat, I'm going to approach them because that's where the bulk of my crime is coming from. However, at the same time, there's still due process, and there's a correct way to go about the situation. And for me, in my laptop situation, I could have lost my life just from trying to put my laptop away, as opposed to, and it goes back to interaction and accountability.
So let's go back to the family situations, right? Recently, I watched a woman walk away from her kid who was picking up his toy in the street. "I'm gonna leave you. You stay right there," and she took off. This kid, and then I've watched people hit their children in public, talk to them all kinds of ways. in public, and then we turn around and we're like, well, why the cops can't do that to your kids, but you're doing it to your kids? So are we teaching our kids how to respond to that in an accepting kind of way, right? If we talk to them that way, don't they learn to accept being talked down to?
Yes, I would agree. If you, the mother, just the attempt